What's up? Happy Smurfing Monday to you. Hope everybody's doing well. Fired up, pumped up, loped up. Insert your favorite whatever the case may be right in there. For those of you that are wondering, it is Monday, which is Pick the Doc's Brain. We got some fun stuff coming up this week. Wednesday, I'm going to have on my friend who I so lovingly call Canada Rod. He is legit from Canada. So I don't say that jokingly. I think he's from Manitoba. Something like that. Manitoba. He may not be from Manitoba. I may have completely made that up. In fact, one thing I've learned is that I'm so redneck inbred sheltered that anything north of the Mason-Dixon line to me is all Canada. Sorry to all of you who are in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. It's all Canada, baby. So, yeah, Wednesday at 4:30, we were going to have Canada Rod on, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of fun stuff. I bet it was a good one there. David Watkins. I promise I did not insert that there. That came from... that came direct from YouTube. If anybody hadn't picked up on it, I do not talk politics on the radio. Anywhere of any platform where I utilize social media, politics is something that never comes up. It's too polarizing. It draws in too many negatives. And there are lots of things, there are lots of negatives I already draw on myself within this industry. I don't need to add another one to it. I do a plenty ample job of painting myself into corners. Golly, could you imagine me? was once told anything north of I-40 is a Yankee. Hiya! Mr. Halpenny, I kind of feel like that. We'll get you a U.S. map, Matt. I appreciate it. I look at it all the time, but it's weird in the one I have in my house. Everything north of Kentucky there just says Canada across it. I don't know. I don't get it. It's all separated by the Great Lakes. I don't know if you know this, but the Great Lakes are actually bordering Kentucky. I need a new map, apparently. David knows, Turf Nerd right here in the chat. He knows what I'm talking about. And listen, and part of this is too is that even people from Ohio. You know, what's the opinion from people of Ohio with people from Kentucky? You know what I'm saying? Had another question. Here's Lawn and Poppin' with Sunny Mac. What's up, dude? Thinking of dropping some heat wave in your Bermuda grass. I think it's great. I'm actually doing some testing with heat wave right now, and I gotta say, of all the other seed varieties I'm testing against, it's doing really badass right now. So, yeah, I think that would be a great place to start. The varieties in it are good. It was fast to come up. Had a very minimal sprout and pout window, but it's doing really well. So, big fan of that Blue Heat variety that Pete's got. Land between the lakes, Kentucky. That's right. And I'll tell you, Kentucky is, trust me, I have a business in Kentucky. I love Kentucky. I love the people of Kentucky. But I tell you what, that is a different place. You get accustomed to all these different places, right? So I lived in Mississippi. I've got family in Mississippi. I know Mississippi. I know the type of redneck for Mississippi. It's predictable. This is what you're used to. You grew up with it, right? But I tell you what, you move into East Tennessee. East Tennessee, you have a different type of redneck. Those are called hillbillies. And listen, these are just East Tennessee hillbillies. That's not even moving up to East Kentucky hillbillies. That's a whole different breed of human being. And then you move up into West Virginia hillbillies, and you're really dealing with a different breed of human being. I'm not saying they're bad by any means. I'm just saying it's just different. It's a different culture. It's weird that as redneck culture can be, it could be even more redneck depending on the area you're in. It's not all encompassing. Everywhere's got their weird quirks. Here I am concerned about trying to go to Florida. You look at Florida. You do not develop a nickname like Florida man being weird. Yeah, but without being not weird. You know what I mean? Although I'm just guessing, but I'm going to say West Virginia is definitely by far the most different, and because when you start moving into the hillbillies, it's a different world. Though. Nothing against them. I'm just saying they're different. I grew up with Mississippi rednecks. Hillbillies are just totally different. But you move into Florida, man, Florida, you get into the crazies. I don't know if the sunshine or the heat goes into your brain or whatever the case may be. Look, Bermuda law, North Carolina, raised in West Virginia. I'm still a hillbilly. There you go. You can take the hillbilly out of West Virginia, but you'll never take the West Virginia. I don't know where I'm going with that. All right, I can kill this music. So a couple things we're going to be doing today is pick the Doc's brain. Of course, we're going to have Mr. Ito on, who is the Green Doc of Hawaii. He's going to be here to answer all of our questions. So if there's something you want us to talk about, feel free. You can put it on the chat. I'm going to be streaming this on YouTube today. You can go to youtube.com/C/thegrassfactor. And you will be able to log on right there, and you can watch everything that's going on. Like I said, Ray will be on today. He'll be answering your questions. Of course, we're going to be live and in charge on the turfsupradio.com and also the Turfs Up Radio app. If you're into that thing, say you're working, you need to be hands-free, no problem. Put your headphones in, turn on the Turfs Up Radio app, and you are gravy train ready to go. The only part of Florida that's in the South is the panhandle. The South don't claim the rest. You're exactly right. Because listen, I've been to some places in Florida now. Not all of them by any means, but I've been South Central Florida. I've been to Southeast Florida. I've been to Southwest Florida. Tampa. Then you flip over to the other side, Fort Lauderdale, all that fun stuff. I've been to all that. That is nowhere near similar as like going up to Navarre Beach over by Eglin Air Force Base, whatever that area is. Nowhere near the same. St. Petersburg and Navarre, Florida are way too opposite ends of the polar ends of the spectrum. I'm not saying one is better or worse by any means. St. Pete has my favorite downtown of anywhere I've ever been in America. I've been to New Orleans. I've been to L.A. I've been to New York. Of all the places I've been, St. Pete Beach downtown is above and beyond my favorite place, my favorite downtown in all of America. Now, it's a great place, but you talk about different. It is totally different than Navarre. Navarre feels more like, the coastal St. Pete Beach area there with your touristy stuff and Pensacola and all that. It kind of has that feel, But there is no downtown scene like downtown St. Petersburg. Downtown St. Petersburg is just, it's amazing. It's an incredible place. But you can't even compare the two. The two towns are not even remotely similar to one another. Although you're out there in San Diego, see, I have very limited experience in California. I've been to LA, of course. I've been to Irvine, and I was literally in Irvine. I was there for less than 24 hours. I flew out there. I landed at like 2:00 in the morning, got to my hotel, had a meeting at 7:00, was back in the airport by like 3:00 in the afternoon, and was out of there. So I didn't really get to experience anything there. But when we went to LA, my wife and I went, and my kids, and we stayed there for a week when my brother-in-law got married. And man, we were, oh golly, that was something else. We were staying in Hollywood area, and it was chaotic. I don't know how else to describe it there. It was like, obviously we've been to Japan. My wife's from Japan, so we've spent a fair amount of time there. I guess over the years, 2.5 months, I guess I've been all together in Japan, and great time there. And I'm used to dealing with the big crowds of people, but it's different in LA. It's just different in LA. Japan and LA do not even remotely compare with one another. It just doesn't. I digress. I'm getting out of here. A couple of things I wanted to get to today before I go to break. Actually, you know what? We'll do that. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we'll bring Doc on. We'll start answering these questions. If you got questions, feel free to put them into the chat. Send me an email at thegrassfactor@gmail.com. Of course, you can get a little squirrely on Twitter if you want to. I got to get logged in there because I'm not on it. And I apologize. I'm still learning how to use Twitter here. It's a bit out of my pay grade, but I'm trying. What else? And after we talk with Ray today, a couple of things. We're going to be talking about the pricing on the fertilizer market. I'm seeing some things on my end. Also, we're going to be talking about the supply chains on the fertilizer market and how that can affect you as a business owner and what to expect moving into the fall and, of course, the winter seasons and ultimately next spring as well, too. Because remember, what takes place over winter is what influences your spring prices and product availability in the fertilizer market. So, all right, hang on. We're taking a break. When we come back, it's time to get down. Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turf's Up Radio.
Hump day?
We have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hot place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
Hey, landscape pros, are you tired of digging through rocks and roots and breaking shovels in the process? Then it's time you checked out the Geo Ripper 616. It's a landscaper's dream with the Makita 6 Series 2-cycle engine producing over 4 horsepower of raw performance. The 616 digs deep in up to 16 inches of the toughest soils. Lighting, landscape, and irrigation contractors already love this improved lightweight trencher with its ability to get in and get out faster, easier, and with less ground disturbance. And you will too. This redesigned Geo Ripper 616 comes with 2 heavy-duty digging chains and a whole mess of helpful extras. To learn more about the Geo Ripper and how it can help you out in the field, visit georipper.com today.
All right, we're back. We're back. And we've got the one, the only, Ray, the Green Duck. How you doing today, good sir?
I am doing well.
How many cups of coffee are you in, Ray?
Well, this is going to be number 3.
Excellent.
Number 3. So I guess I'm ready.
Yeah. Good and sauced up. All right, Ray. So I'll run this down here, and first things first is somebody posted a video here where they were doing premium versus big box store seeds, and I haven't watched this video here, but the statement was, in his experience, he noticed that starter fertilizer seemed to slow down initial germination. He'd never heard of that. So has anyone ever seen that before? So I was going to ask you, Ray. I've done a lot of this in lab and out in the field, but I was going to ask, have you ever seen that happen before?
Actually, I haven't, because starter fertilizer is something that we actually don't use a lot of here in Hawaii, because the standard for even starting, say, Bermuda seed in a large area is 1-1-1 fertilizer. We don't use a specific starter fertilizer. Everybody uses either 1-1-1 or 1-3-1 as a starter.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know what starter fertilizer was used really at all, too. I mean, this is all I'm looking here and I'm not seeing. If anybody who saw this wants to comment and tell me what starter fertilizer he used. You know, there are certain things I know, at least in agriculture, and it is managing the amount of ammonium that goes down at the time of seeding. So for instance, over applications of ammonium can slow the initial germination rate of seed. Now, what I can say is that in lab settings and also field settings, so I've been overseeding grass, growing grass from seed for the better part of the majority of my career, and I have to say, it's there have been certain instances, given the what the soil is starting with, where I have seen faster germination out of a control plot with nothing on it. It's not every time. It's not 100% repeatable. So a lot of times where normally that comes up, that I have seen it, have been soils that have very high organic matter levels. And especially if it's still warm outside, then you are churning through that organic matter and causing a pretty significant release of, organic matter is going to contain NP and certain amounts of K, depending on the source, right? So I have seen it in those instances where it may be a deterrent on the front end, but normally after germination, where it normally hits that lull, that's where you tend to see the starter fertilizer power straight through versus a control or a check plot that has no starter fertilizer at all. And then the difference between initial germination rate and versus the check plot, literally we're talking about within 18, 24-hour difference there. Now, as I've replicated that in the lab, it's way more consistent because you control all the aspects, everything from water to temperature to amount of light. And it's very difficult to replicate that, especially if you're starting with something that does not contain any organic matter. Like a lot of times when we're doing germination studies, we're doing it on sand, right? And the reason why we're doing it on sand is to see which of these starter fertilizers actually have an influence over germination rates versus the check plot. And the check plot, hopefully, meaning no available NPK, right? Or as little as possible. Or whatever stored up in the seed. Because the majority of the time, what you're getting from that initial germination push is what's stored up in the seed. It's not what's coming from the ground. Now, after it pushes out of the seed and pushes into the ground, that's what makes or breaks you. Because if you have phosphorus available then that plant can go ahead and proliferate that root system because it has a nutrient load making its way into the new plant, into the new leaf. But if it doesn't, if it's not there, that's when you're relying on that to tap into the soil and take up whatever it possibly can, whether it's available or not. It's going to have to go ahead and start the process of root exudation and all that fun stuff. And the reality of it is that if it's a 1/16 of an inch tall plant with a 1/16 of an inch root, how much of that is actually going to be able to take place? That's all I got, Ray.
Yeah. I tend to think about things like actual salt index of the fertilizer as well.
That's a great point too. That's a great point.
Yeah, high salt index. I do know that I've seen so-called starter fertilizers where their potassium source is actually potassium chloride. I also have seen starter fertilizers that, as you say, they go way heavy on the ammonia, because my ideal starter fertilizer, if I wanted to go heavy on the phosphorus, would be, say, a combination of potassium phosphate and potassium nitrate. And the reason why nitrate is because potassium nitrate doesn't have that high ammonia level issue. But that would be a very expensive starter fertilizer indeed.
Yeah, it would. It would. And again, the performance difference you're going to get from a 3-week, 6-week, 12-week period, you know, is it worth it to go without starter fertilizer or go with starter fertilizer? And in my opinion, over that 12-week period, over an 8-week period, it's more important to go ahead and go with it than take the risk of trying to go without it.
Absolutely. And typically when I seed, or if I ever seed, I don't front load the soil with high levels of anything. My preference is to actually start spoon feeding it as soon as the seed germinates.
As soon as the seed germinates.
As soon as the seed germinates and I see, little green shoots, then I start, applying small amounts of, NPK, micronutrients at that time. I mean, in other words, I don't believe in loading the soil with anything.
Sure.
I don't believe in doing it. It's, it's okay to have like a baseline of 1-1-1 in the soil, but I do not follow the school of loading the soil with anything.
Yeah. And the longer you ask the soil to hold on to things, the more potential there is for the soil to do bad things to those things it's holding on to.
Absolutely. And I typically deal with very high CEC soils, so in order for me to load the soil to the point that, number one, it's able to even give back what I've applied, that takes some extraordinary rates of materials. Extraordinary. So it's not worth it.
It makes me wonder, too, a lot of times when I see people do these tests, is especially if they're doing it in a pot or something, when they're trying to figure out how much of a starter fertilizer to use in a pot, a lot of times that math gets crossed. Because ultimately what ends up happening is, you say, well, I just need a little bit, and you'll grab, a small handful and kind of sprinkle it on there to however you would interpret it to be across the yard. But the difference is that oftentimes in these container grown plots, you have to remember, we're talking about 2 inches by 2 inches or 4 inches by 4 inches, or a 4.5 inch circle. That is a way different area than over 1,000 square feet. And, then you have to math it down, and you'll start second guessing yourself. You mean at 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet, all of a sudden this comes down where I'm applying it at 7 grams?
Yep, 7 grams. And you also need to account for actual depths of media that you're even treating, because a 4-inch tall, nursery pot is a lot different from a yard or a sports field where you've got several feet of soil depth.
Yeah, and the second piece of that is the water that runs out of the container through capillary action will be taken up back into it. So you have to remember there, the other piece you're going to be working with is almost 100% efficiency of whatever material it is you apply as well.
That's right. And see, they have those nursery pots on drip trays to hold everything that drains out. That's true. That's true. I never thought of that before, but
I made the mistake many years ago, long time ago. This was circa 2007. I was doing one of those where it was a huge tray, and I had like 13 different things I was doing, throughout this gigantic tray. And some of them where I didn't do anything, I mean, there was no discernible difference between any of them. They were all growing just completely juiced up. And I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And I asked the teacher, I'm like, why is this happening? And I'm like, you dumbass, it's all taking the same water. And as it goes into solution, they're all sharing the same water. Therefore, they're all taking up the same nutrient load. I was like, oh yeah.
Oh. I had the good fortune of learning soil fertility and soil chemistry from this old guy who used to be the agronomist for the sugar plantation. I mean, I love this old man because he knew his business, he knew his stuff. And to this day, I still remember one of those exercises that he put our class through, where we grew corn in pots, and each pot was all alone, in its own area, and each pot was made to grow with one nutrient missing from its fertilizer. One nutrient. And that became rather instructional for me, because then that helped me be able to visually see what happens when a plant is growing with a nutrient deficiency. It helped me, see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It helped me see it. But then here's the key point. Each plant was in its own area, and it didn't sit like in a common tree or a common area. It was all separated. There was a physical separation between each plant, so there was no chance of cross-contamination.
Yeah, and when you're talking about this too in a big open field, you get rain across the area, you get irrigation across the area. The amount of outward movement of that water is going to be limited, just because the surrounding area around it is also getting normally the same amount of water as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you tend to get better downward mobility of the water versus outward mobility of the water. Now, if you're irrigating one plot and not irrigating any of the plots next to it, there could be some outward mobility there, but still, you're going to be limited. Not all your water is going to run 6 feet laterally. You know what I mean? Versus in a plot with a contained water system, and you've got multiple plots all in that same water system, anything that leaches out of the pot is going to be shared with the other pots.
Absolutely, unless you have that actual physical separation. Unless you have that physical separation, it's just common sense.
Studying
common sense.
Studying leachates can. That's a whole separate deal in and of itself, and kind of an interesting deal. Ray, real quick, I got to take a break. When we come back, we'll let's keep on keeping on, see where we end up. All right, everybody, you are listening to Turfs Up Radio. This is Pick the Doc's Brain. You got questions? Feel free, ask them in the chat. Send me an email, thegrassfactor@gmail.com, or even the Twitter sphere @thegrassfactor. Take your pick your poison. Hang on, more coming up after the break. Playing the best music.
Hands down and dirty. Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
What?
Playing the best irrigation systems into organic fertilizing, safe pest repelling machines.
Oh, man.
Products green feeder system. Irrigation contractors or
Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio.
We got a repeat.
Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up.
Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Sorry about that. I fat
Hey,
fingered
Green Industry Pros, Turfs Up
my
Radio
butt.
is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of The Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's The Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Eric the Turf Teacher Jones. The morning show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. And Keeping Up with Mr. Jones, Mondays at 6 to 8 p.m. Teaching you life lessons, business strategies, and leadership.
Let's grow together. Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Yeah. All right, we're back. Segment number 2 of Pick the Doc's Brain. All right, Ray, we got a question here, and this is one we get often, so we're gonna go ahead and let's just pound it out again right now while we got it. Ray, Ray, I'm looking for a solution to get rid of Dallas grass in Bermuda. There has got to be something.
Oh my, that's like easily solved in my opinion. I mean, takes multiple steps. Step 1, mow low. Step 2, optimize your soil fertility, because one thing I notice about Dallas grass, at least in my area, is that Dallas grass tends to become worse in acidic soils. And number 3, herbicides. And my poison of choice happens to be either Revolver plus Celsius or Tribute Total applied in methylated seed oil. And if you want to get truly fancy, and if you have the budget for it, other option is that new release by Syngenta called Manuscript. manuscript is to be used as a repeated spot spray on each Dallas grass clump. This is one where actually it does not work very well when applied as a broadcast spray, because as a broadcast spray, you're only allowed one application at the rate that's actually effective, and after that, you're done for the year.
Yeah, there's lots of options. I said monument. Tribute total, manuscript. I mean, it's again one of those things too. And Ray, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know about manuscript. Is that also a fall started program as well?
I think it can be, because the mode of action of manuscript is actually just like fluazotop and phenoxyprop.
Ah, okay.
It's same mode of action. So if you cause that kind of metabolic disruption in the fall to the Dallas grass, that has long-term effects that carry you into the spring of next year. However, having said that, Dallas grass control is never a one-shot application program, because for me, I would probably be hitting it in the fall, and then in the spring, I'd be on it again. And because in the spring, it's weakened from what you did in the fall. And so while it's still weakened, you basically run it out of town.
Yeah, it says, attempted Celsius before, but the app rate may have been low. Well, the thing is that Celsius in and of itself, no matter what your rate may be, it's never going to get it for you. It'll knock it back. You'll burn the leaves off of it. You'll feel real confident about it, but you're not going to get a total kill out of it with Celsius alone. Maybe if all the stars align in the universe and you catch it right at the right time, directly before it goes dormant, you may be able to do something with just Celsius, but that is just an absolute miracle if you accomplish it that way. The better bet is to use the herbicide combinations, the combination products, or the specific products to get that level of control you're looking for.
And speaking of combinations, there is a third combination that I like for Dallas grass, especially when there's co-infestation with nutsedge or kailinga, and that is on Bermuda. I like Monument and Celsius.
Another fun one there. That is a fun one. I have sprayed much of that over the last few years, and that's a kind of an interesting one. You get real nice purpling out of your Dallas grass.
Yeah, and what I find with that is if I need to spray an area and it also has that notorious purple nutsedge in it, I might as well go after the purple nutsedge as well while I'm at it.
Ray, Mr. Arnett here said dismiss NXT for Dallas grass. Now, dismiss NXT is a combination of sulfentrazone and carfentrazone. There's no real systemic activity out of that would work for eliminating what's happening within the soil for something like Dallas grass. Would you expect good long-term control out of a product like Dismiss NXT, or are we just burning off what's at the surface only to allow it to return later?
We are only burning it because truth is that most grasses are actually rather tolerant of sulfentrazone and carfentrazone, but here's what my good friend at University of Hawaii has found, and this is going to be rather interesting. When you add sulfentrazone to one of these sulfonylurea herbicide type treatments, you get additional effect. You get additional effect there's something about adding sulfentrazone to your application that causes the weed to be hit at different angles. In other words, while the weed is trying to deal with having that foliar burn, you're also having the metabolic inhibition by the sulfonylurea herbicide. And the predecessor to that was back in the 1990s up till 2000, my favorite grassy weed control in Bermuda and Glacier was none other than imazaquin and MSNA.
Which would have been a great one.
Yeah, that actually would have been the product for removing Bahia grass, weedy species of paspalum, and Gallus grass from a turf area, because MSNA by itself just provides a lot of foliar burn. Just know that. And because I was aware of that, to this day, I always cringe when I, hear about these less than smart people online nowadays, so happy because they have their jug of MSNA, and I'm asking myself, okay, so what are they tank mixing it with to ensure that they actually get efficacy out of the product? Because for me, my main partners with that kind of an application to get both the foliar burn combined with the compromise of the actual weed would be things like Plus Image and Plus Princep, Timazine. And there were many cases where I cleaned up areas, putting all three in the tank, and then 4 ounces per acre Banville, and then off to the races.
I think you've done a presentation about this before, and the presentation was restoration of turfgrass areas, repair instead of replacement.
Absolutely. Except I cleaned up this dumpster fire of a lawn without MSNA, but I employed all of the newer chemistry, and part of the newer chemistry that I employed was tenacity plus Syncor. That was a key part of this, turf renovation process, because, by the way, tenacity does not adversely affect paspalum species. Just putting it out there in case we have listeners that are in the transition zone or the north that are faced with Dallas grass, and they're thinking, what if I go at it with some tenacity? No, tenacity is not going to kill or even substantially injure Dallas grass beyond some temporary whitening. So save that for something else. What did injure or does injure weedy species of paspalums is combination of Celsius revolver and the lowest rate of sulfentrazone. That makes a difference.
Yeah, no doubt. I can definitely say that combination is a continued performer. I don't have the experience with tenacity to say even look at it from that point of view, but I can say that also Pilex, even though another HPPD still works. That actually works. Where tenacity, you're not really catching the same amount of action out of it.
You're not. You're absolutely not. And that is because in terms of potency, Pilex provides much higher, inhibition and biological activity, which, translates because base weight of tenacity that I can run on my Shipastalum and Bermuda turf, for example, is 4 ounce per acre. The safe rate on those same turf grasses of Pilex is no more than a half an ounce per acre. So I'm estimating that activity is at least 8 times higher. And for the cool season, people in the cool season, you run 1 to 1.5 ounces per acre of the Pilex, whereas with the tenacity, I see the label rate as high as 8 ounces. So again, there's that, just by the rate per acre, I'm seeing a difference in, activity, because if Pilex and tenacity were the same, then you'd be running 4 to 8 ounces of each, right?
Yep.
Yep. And so I could easily see if somebody made the commitment and hit their Dallas grass 3 or 4 times with an ounce of Pilex per acre, I could see them, knocking down that Dallas grass. But you can't do that in Bermuda. Can't do it. So that leaves that out. I actually prefer that people do things that are more selective when they're trying to control Dallas grass, because Dallas grass is also opportunistic.
No doubt.
And when I say opportunistic, Dallas grass moves in when there's damage from something else, or the turf is kept, on the thinner side. And believe it or not, on Bermuda, when you mow high, the turf in a lot of cases is actually high but thin, if you can imagine.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to see, but because the canopy, you maybe have some density at the canopy, but as you stick your hand down, you're going to notice there's not a lot of density. You're not seeing the overlying layers of stolons crossing one another.
That's right. That's right. And I know when I was putting together that one presentation, there was a picture that I still remember, where I put my hand down on this lawn after it had been mowed correctly for the last 6 months prior to me, taking the picture. And it's like you can't see the dirt or the soil through the turf, and height of cut on that grass is approximately a half an inch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Bermuda grass at a half an inch, common Bermuda, I might add, at a half an inch. So height of cut makes the difference. And in any case where I even see weedy grasses, I even tell people, if you're not going to commit to mowing this low enough, you're going to have to learn to love your weedy grasses. Okay, you're going to have to learn to love it, because what I find is that when I combine these herbicides for the Dallas grass or other weedy grasses with low mowing, what happens is the added stress to the weedy grass of being mowed low is what pushes it over the edge and kills it. Because I know the story. Everybody says, oh, Celsius doesn't work, Revolver doesn't work, Monument doesn't work. And when I pick that apart and dissect that, what is your height of cut? Oh, let's see, it's about, 2, 3, 3 inches about.
What about 1 inch?
That is still not low enough to get into the actual crown of the weedy grasses. That's not low enough. Because, even after that, because I remember what comes up on the shows once in a while is this weed called blue stem, which is prevalent in Texas and Hawaii.
King Ranch blue stem?
King Ranch blue stem or little blue stem or pitted beard grass. All of those are blue stem species. And what I do to remove blue stem species from a turf area is 1/2-inch height of cut and monument and Celsius, or monument and revolver, or image and revolver. And that, with no mowing, essentially removes it from the turf area. It just gets rid of it but if I allow that area to continue to be mowed at heights of cut over 1 inch, I am very disappointed with the results from the herbicide treatment.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. It doesn't work. It don't work. So I think you've heard me tell people when they ask, how do I get rid of this, weird grass, in their lawn that nothing seems to touch, I tell them, first step is get a greens mower. Get a greens mower. Get a greens mower. Because what I've actually seen from from using that kind of low height of cut is I come by with the greens mower after the herbicides have taken effect, and the greens mower literally grabs the crown of the blue stem and yanks it out of the turf. It yanks it out.
Yeah, and it's. I actually had to deal with a lot of little blue stem in Memphis, and it was one of the ones that was incredibly difficult to control, especially post MSMA timeframe. That everybody kind of scratched their heads around. But also, how often are you coming across someone who's mowing at 1/2 inch? You're not. And so it allows that weed to proliferate and develop a root system that is unfortunately just going to continue to be there until you are able to assist your herbicide application through cultural control as well.
Absolutely. That's and even with Dallas grass, I get Dallas grass here too, and what I find happening is I treat it, and then I put the greens mower on it, and the greens mower scalps off the crown of that Dallas grass, and that added stress is what pushes the Dallas grass over the edge. In other words, I'm not expecting the herbicides to do 100% of the job.
Right.
I'm not. And other modes that I could, consider for those kind of weedy grasses is the turf groomer attachments that come on some greens mowers. I wish I had a turf groomer attachment, because when dealing with grasses like that, I put the groomer down and let that groomer chop up and pull up all of that Dallas grass and blue stem.
Asking the groomer let it do some damn work.
Yeah, exactly. But I have no other good way of getting to those kind of weedy, noxious, and invasive grasses. I have no other way. And if I had a groomer, I'd put that groomer down and let the groomer, chop up and pull up all of that garbage.
Well,
the Bermuda or the Zersa would just, lap it off and grow back.
Ray, real quick, I got to take a break, and when I come back from break, I'm going to send you a soil test over on the Discord.
All right.
I'll ask you to take a look
All
at.
right.
When we come back from break, sir, Mr. Cook, we're going to take a look at this and see what we can't get figured out about it. Let's take the mystery away. You're listening to Pick the Doc's Brain on Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turf's Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Eric the Turf Teacher Jones. The morning show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. And Keeping Up with Mr. Jones, Mondays at 6 to 8 p.m. Teaching you life lessons, business strategies, and leadership.
Let's grow together. Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey guys, it's Frank Borg. More lawn care pros are working on their business rather than in them with the Lawn Buddy app. Lawn Buddy puts you in the driver's seat right along with your employees, helping you to guide them through their work while you focus on growth. With the Lawn Buddy app, you'll be more confident that work is being done and more money is being made faster. To learn how Lawn Buddy can help your lawn care business, visit lawnbuddy.com or simply download the Lawn Buddy app today. Great job, guys.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of the Green Veteran here on Turf's Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's the Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Turf's Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turf's Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com.
Yes, sir! We're back! We're back! Segment number 2 of Pick the Doc's Brain. All right, Ray, I sent you this soil test. That was page 1 we were looking at, and I when I looked at it immediately, there were some things that caught my attention, and I would say I would bet a dime a dozen that the same thing caught your attention as well. And so we'll go ahead and just throw that out there, and it is that there are only 11 pounds per acre of phosphorus available in this soil.
Yep, that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is low potassium. Actually, I would flip that and say that problem number 1 is the low potassium. Okay, and number 3, and this is going to be a little bit, unusual for me, is the rather low rate of magnesium as well. So this is where you satisfy part of your lime requirement with what's called dolomite lime, which does have a certain percent of magnesium in the lime, and get your pH up. That's what I'd say, is get your pH up and then work on getting your potassium and phosphorus up as well.
Yeah, so and this is so typical, and I didn't even look to see what part of Georgia he's in, but so many of these soil tests I see from Georgia, the first thing I notice are the abysmally low soil pHs and also phosphorus levels. Here, I'm gonna make this part of the YouTube video. But and then the second piece of it is the important thing here in my opinion too is it drives me crazy that they end up reporting the pounds per acre in terms of available nutrients, because nobody is trying to correct it based on pounds per acre. Normally is not how that's seen. You know, whether you're using the MLSN as a starting point or whatever the case may be, why choose pounds per acre? It chaps my ass. You're just doing it to be different, in my opinion. So now you've got to convert it to parts per million. And how do you do that? Typically, you multiply it by 2. So we're at only 22 parts per million of phosphorus. And we know the minimum level for sustainable nutrition. This is the absolute bare minimum, doggone minimum. Like, you don't want to be at this point. This is when stuff starts dying. is 31 parts per million. I believe it. Isn't it 31? Yep. I think it's 31. I'm trying to go off memory
31,
here.
Yeah, 31, although it depends on the turf grass as well, because what is actually concerning and alarming me is that you are trying to grow hybrid Bermuda on soil that is so low in phosphorus and potassium, and your soil pH is in the basement. That is just alarming me. However, this would be good soil for growing centipede grass.
Yeah. Actually, this is kind of on the money for centipede right here. Yeah.
But because he's trying to do Bermuda, that phosphorus level, that potassium level, and even the magnesium level is not going to make it. It's not going to make it, because I've seen instances where adding a small amount of magnesium to a Bermuda or Zoysia lawn turns it a ridiculous shade of green. And that's because the soil was so magnesium deficient.
And Ray, I made a giant mistake. When you're taking it from pounds per acre to ppm, you actually divide by 2. It's a factor of half. So we're only dealing with 5.5 parts per million of phosphorus and only 51 parts per million of potassium. So, and here's the other thing on the potassium, and the potassium level there at 51 parts per million. So even Dr. Michael Woods, when he was establishing the MLSN, he started noticing plant failure at 50 parts per million of potassium. So you're right there at the critical threshold of like plants beginning to die. It's becoming so critically deficient in potassium. And you couple that, you're extremely critically deficient in phosphorus. It's a lose-lose situation here. Now, normally when I'm talking to these guys and recommending, what to go out with, it's real simple. This is one of those where you hear people say, "Why would I use a 10-10? Why would I use a 10-10? 10-10 is the sorriest fertilizer on the market." And you always, Ray, have the comeback that no, a triple anything is one of the most effective fertilizers on the market, because again, in this particular situation right here, the best thing you could apply would be a 10-10 or a 15 or a 20 or a 30, whatever it is you want to apply. As long as it's a 1-to-1-to-1, you're in good cooking by doing that. And in fact, this is so low in phosphorus, I may even recommend your first application going out with some damn MAP or DAP and getting that down as your first application to hurry up and try and correct some of this, because boy, you're not in a good spot here.
Well, you're in a terrible place, and this to me would be, if I were doing this lawn, this would be called extra, MAP in the tank, extra MAP on top of my 20, because the phosphorus levels are so low. And this would, if I were seeing this grass in person, I would be seeing various shades of purple and brown. You know where I'd be seeing that? You know why I'd be seeing all of that?
Due to the deficiency.
Yeah. Because beginning of the show, when that corn was forced to grow in a low phosphorus or no phosphorus media, it just turned purple. The corn that was forced to grow in that no potassium media was just all burnt margins on the leaves, burnt shoots, stunting of growth. It just didn't look good.
You know, and this is kind of the weird thing, and this is what I know about the Atlanta area and managing grass in Georgia in general. Is the weird thing is, Ray, is that you'll see this lawn, and you're probably not going to notice it, but you're going to notice it doesn't respond real well to fertilizer, loses its color pretty fast. Every time you cut it, it looks like it's dying, and then a couple weeks after you cut it, it looks back to normal. It's just kind of the weird cycle you get into this. And here's the thing is, and you lawn care guys get sucked into a false sense of security here because they get it. And, you know, for the most part, it's doing okay. And so you're like, well, if it's doing okay, I mean, I've got no real issues with it. No, nobody's calling and complaining. It's doing okay. And my argument to that is that you don't know how good it can look if it is corrected. You know, I've been sold on these low input programs before and saying, no, it's fine. You can do it on a low input program. You can do it. It'll be fine. But the reality of the situation is this, is what people have to remember is that you market yourself differently. If you market yourself as a company who's just going to come out and make sure it's a little green and that primarily the weeds are taken care of, you can probably get away with however this looks like. But if you're trying to differentiate yourself from everybody else that's out there, you can't get away with things looking okay. You can't get away with things looking good. They've got to be great. If you sell yourself as providing a superior service, they have to be great. How do they get to the point of being great? It's not starving the crap out of the plant like, unfortunately, is going on here. When you look at this soil test, this is a plant that is starving. There is so much unlocked potential here. So much unlocked potential.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that in my area, this level of deficiency would not fly for very long. Do you know why? You know why it wouldn't fly?
No.
The reason why it wouldn't fly is because typically, unless I'm the one doing the mowing, every last grass clipping is picked up at every mowing.
Well, hang on, Ray. Michael, we are not throwing shade at you, but Michael does bag all the clippings when he mows this.
Oh no, that's terrible, because what that means is that that snapshot taken by the soil test means that here's what's happening when you bag all the clippings. You are then taking out more phosphorus, more potassium, more calcium, and more magnesium every time you mow. Think about that.
Exactly. So, there's a thing in agriculture that they pay attention to. It's called nutrient removal. And literally what they do is they measure how much of your nutrients are removed from the soil that make their way into the crop. Now, what they also take into account at the start of the year is crop residue and how many of those nutrients through the crop residue, the clippings and the unharvestable material that gets laid out on the soil, returns back into the soil. Same thing with grass clippings. As you mow and you collect and you remove those, you're literally removing the nutrients out of the soil through the plant into the leaf tissue and then taking it somewhere else and depositing it. So the nutrients that were in the soil are now somewhere else. And it's not just nitrogen. It's phosphorus, it's potassium, it's calcium, magnesium, zinc, manganese, magnesium, boron, zinc, whatever. All of them are being taken up into the leaf tissue. You're cutting it out, and then you're physically removing it by putting it somewhere else.
That's right. And which is why, as I said, my fertilizer programs also change depending on whether I'm doing the mowing or someone else does the mowing, because if somebody else is doing the mowing, they are most likely removing all of the clippings every time. And so I then need to tilt my program towards putting back more phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and the micronutrients, because it is being removed at every single mowing.
And, on this UGA soil test here, one of the things they said, which I thought was good, you don't see this oftentimes, but it says, clippings do not contribute to thatch under proper management and thus do not need to be removed. If they are removed, increase the fertilizer application rate by 30%.
I like that number, although what I do if clippings are going to be removed is I will actually increase my application of everything except nitrogen by up to 50%.
On board. Yep.
Yep. I will automatically increase everything else except the nitrogen by at least 50%. And that's just key. And in my early years, I never did my own mowing. I left it to, some people I trusted at that time. And what I noticed is my lawns would literally fall down color and growth wise probably about 45 days after the previous application, but that's because those lawns went through at least, 3 or 4 mowings in that 45-day period. That's how much nutrients are being removed when you collect clippings.
Yeah, and it's not to say you can't collect clippings. You certainly can, but you have to account for it in terms of replacing what is being removed.
Absolutely. It's and the worst case scenarios that I've walked into are programs or situations where people are collecting clippings and they're only putting back nitrogen, or else they're not putting back anything at all. And I call that anorexia for lawns.
Yeah, and this is, and that's what's going on right here is that this lawn at 50 parts per million of potassium, 5 parts per million of phosphorus. This is a very, very anorexic lawn. This is a lawn that has done nothing but consume. The only thing it has to consume right now would be, like, for instance, carbohydrates. I'm just doing as a random comparison here, but as carbohydrates. And if you had a diet that only consisted of carbohydrates, it's just pasta, right? That's the only thing you have to eat, and you don't have any tomatoes for your pasta sauce. You don't have any meats and proteins or any other.
You don't even have olive oil. Oh, God.
Right, exactly.
Forget it.
you eventually there's going to be some issues. There's going to be some body failures, and it's kind of the same thing you fall into in this scenario here. If you do not have a balanced diet, whether it be a human body or a plant diet, unfortunately you get put into some bad issues. Now, the 5.4 pH, I've seen that do okay in Georgia. Should you be liming that every year? 100%. Definitely make that as part of what you do. You'll be happy that you do. You'll begin to see that. That'll begin to return on an investment there. Year 2, year 3, year 4, you're going to start to see some big changes in the consistency of your soil. Now,
that's right.
The lawn stripes just said anorexia got a supermodel contract, and unfortunately, it's not the same thing, Daniel.
Yeah, well, for me, the best thing that I was ever told by the company that makes the, Peter's fertilizers is, he told me to consider calcium and magnesium essential plant nutrients. They are more than just lime. It's more than just lime. It is also about supplying calcium and magnesium, because I've been in instances where the turf is actually suffering from a calcium and magnesium deficiency, and the corrective for that is actually applying something like calcium nitrate, which is soluble and available right now.
What about magnesium sulfate, Ray?
Magnesium sulfate when it is appropriate, but here's where I think people need to be careful is you see that low potassium level on that test, Matt?
Yes.
If you overdo the magnesium, you'll then inhibit uptake of the potassium.
That's
so
right.
The worst thing that somebody can do to this lawn is load it up with Epsom salts because somebody on the internet told them to do it. That's the worst thing. Yeah, that's the worst thing that somebody can do to this lawn right now is just because somebody on the internet said that it was good to do it, go load up the lawn on Epsom salts and not apply anything else. It's all about balance, as you say, because that would be like the unbalanced human diet. Same thing with grasses and plants. They all need a relatively balanced diet in order to function at and perform at their very best. It's just a law of nature that I have not been able to get around or violate.
All right, Ray, I got to take a break. When we come back, we'll start talking about some Bermuda seed and when to apply weed control and when to apply pre-emergent. So we'll get to that after the break. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Pick the Doc's Brain. We got to pay a couple bills, and when we come back, we'll move on to segment Nana. Cuatro. Cut. It's Foreign Language Day right here on Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turf's Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Eric the Turf Teacher Jones. The morning show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. And Keeping Up with Mr. Jones, Mondays at 6 to 8 p.m. Teaching you life lessons, business strategies, and leadership.
Let's grow together. Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey guys, it's Frank Borg. More lawn care pros are working on their business rather than in them with the Lawn Buddy app. Lawn Buddy puts you in the driver's seat right along with your employees, helping you to guide them through their work while you focus on growth. With the Lawn Buddy app, you'll be more confident that work is being done and more money is being made faster. To learn how Lawn Buddy can help your lawn care business, visit lawnbuddy.com or simply download the Lawn Buddy app today. Great job, guys.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Shout out to my buddy J Pink that just had everybody in the Iowa area got smashed. Iowa, Illinois had a Dureco come through and just annihilated things. J Pink just sent me pictures and his fence is decimated. He's got trees laying in his yard. his whole side yard that's normally just a beautiful patch of grass is completely and totally littered. So I hope everybody in the Illinois and Iowa area right now have survived and are doing okay, because my goodness, the pictures coming out of it right now are brutal. Absolutely brutal. Ray, okay, so Polo, we'll get to you here, but we got two questions in front of you. And Ray, the first one is, I've got newly seeded Bermuda. It's very patchy, over 30,000 square feet. Several mowings in and about to hit it with tribute total. Do I hold off on pro-diamine for now until September to give it the best chance of spreading, or should I go ahead and put it down now?
Actually, I would put it down now. And the way I do it with recently planted grasses is, warm season grasses, is I limit my application to no more than a half a pound of the 65 WDG per acre. I do a low rate that the Bermuda can, tolerate well, and will give me some measure of control over the grassy weeds that are undoubtedly germinating, or else why else would you be considering applying tribute total?
Yes, and this is one of those times where, in my experience, if you are not 100% certain that you can make a quality application of a pre-emergent and not over-apply, I would warn you, don't apply it all together. But if you're confident in your application skills to put down an accurate application, definitely do it. Because what I've seen happen a lot of times is people get a little confident, and then they go out there and they're like, oh, well, I'm only running a half rate. Then they get lost in their lines. They double up on some lines. They triple on a couple other lines, skip a few lines, and then double up on another one. And then what happens is you get these real odd patches that just do not perform like the rest of the lawn. I've seen it.
Yes, it's all about, goes back to the level of your application equipment determines what you can and cannot do. That is my opinion, is if you have really good application equipment and you're able to use that application equipment, you can do stuff that other people can't do. For example, I always get called in to deal with recently seeded, sodded, or sprigged turf grass here. I'm the one that gets those kind of calls because most people are either afraid to touch it, they don't know what to do with it, or else it is well known that if you do the wrong thing, you're just going to fry that new install and have to do it all over again.
I've made mistakes too, where and this is one of those times where it's August the 10th, it's patchy as it is right now, and I made the mistake one time of going ahead and applying pre-emergent in the spring, not knowing whether or not it was going to come out of dormancy. And to be honest, and Ray, let me preface this, that I actually didn't seed it until about August. And It was one of those things where it was, everybody knew the risk going in. There was no doubt about it. Everybody knew the risk. I thought we still had enough growing season that it could establish and it would go dormant and it'd come out fine. But for whatever reason, it went dormant and it did not come out of dormancy. But I had made my early season pro-diamine application, both of them, before it broke dormancy. And that made it harder to come back and do the seed work, reparative seed work on the back end.
Absolutely. And which is why you notice how I'm always going with the lower split rates of prodiamine if I do use it. And there's a reason for that. just in case there's a problem. Just in case there's a problem. I don't care what that problem is. Just in case there's a problem, I don't want the turf grass to be compromised by me putting down that maximum 2 point something pound per acre of 65 WDG all at once. I don't want that problem. So half a pound per acre, and half a pound per acre is actually more than adequate to hold back your simpler grassy weeds like crabgrass, for example. That's more than enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's more than enough. And if you do that half a pound application twice, that is enough to start holding back even goosegrass. So, and interestingly enough, half a pound per acre is well tolerated by most grasses. That is a rate that's well tolerated. Have you seen anything different?
Nope.
Yeah, it's well tolerated. So what I always, go by is try to find treatments or applications that the turf grass can tolerate without, damage, because to me, turf damage actually invites weeds.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, turf damage invites weeds. So that's why you go with the lower rate split app. Do it once, evaluate, then do it again 30 to 45 days later, and you'll be all right.
All right, Ray, I've got one more for you here, and then we will call it a day, good sir. And the question is, I've been using T-Nex since the spring, and I noticed that since the temperatures warmed up, my turf keeps coming out of regulation 3 to 4 weeks, even when I doubled the rate. I was applying about 0.4 ounces every 2 weeks. I do get bronzing every time I apply, but I got better regulation in the spring, about 4 weeks. Turf is mostly Kentucky bluegrass with some perennial ryegrass and tall fescue mixed in. Please help.
Okay. That is where I start to do my multiple PGRs, like on KBG, Kentucky bluegrass, and with some rye in it. I'd even be looking at adding a new and cutlass to that program, because both a new and cutlass, they do two things. They tend to mitigate the bronzing caused by trinexapac, and they offer a longer period of regulation, because back in the old days, when I think what Cutlass was a product marketed by, I think, Dow, Cutlass was labeled for use as a once every 60-day growth regulator on turf. And the way you do that is you'd apply a massive dose of the Cutlass wettable powder per acre, and literally, I think 2 applications would be enough to get a Gulf fairway with Kentucky Blue or Bent through the entire season.
Yeah, so, this is, and the other thing too, T-Nex specifically, the hotter it gets outside, the faster you're going to burn through that regulation period. That's just the nature of using T-Nex. And so exactly like you said, diversifying your modes of action or your active ingredients, or combining your active ingredients in that time frame would give you the duration of regulation that you're probably looking for. So where Henry here is struggling, and he's even applying at the point, and he's causing bronzing every time he's applying. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that, because what I would otherwise have to do on my turf is, do you know why I started experimenting with a new and cutlass for my lawns? It's because I once applied up to a half an ounce per 1,000 square foot of T-Nex on Zoysia. And believe me, that didn't look good. Because the turf absolutely, obviously looked poisoned even. The leaves got very small, and they were yellow and purple. And yes, I got, a very prolonged rate of regulation, but the turf looking stunted, small leaves and purple is not commercially acceptable at all. So add the Anu. What the Anu did was make the regulation come on sooner. At least in Zoysia, regulation kicks in sooner. The cutlass mitigates a lot of that yellowing and purpling and bronzing caused by high rates of T-Nex, because then with the other two PGRs on board, I can then reduce the rate of Trinexapac down to a more sane level, like no more than 0.25 ounces per 1,000 square foot.
All right. Yeah. And the other thing, and this is why I feel like, especially if it's something you're just starting with growth regulators, go ahead and use one of the growing degree day models from like the Greenkeeper app or something like that. It helps make sense of it more until you develop more experience to be able to make those judgment calls of, okay, do I try and increase my T-Nex rate, or do I add something like a new to the mix and keep it regulated that way? All right, Ray, one more here before we go to break. Jason Traylor, Dr. Traylor in the house. He said he was asking about leaf spot in Bermuda versus hybrid, because in his backyard he's got both, unfortunately, both hybrid and common Bermuda. And he might have gone a little heavy-handed with the nitrogen back there, trying to get some to fill in. He real mows at about 3/4 of an inch, but a few days after his last fertilizer application, he got some leaf spots showing and some melting out a day or so later. Only in the comment, the hybrid is freaking thriving. Just mowing every other day like normal. Is there anything that should be changed?
Actually, the only thing that should be changed is he probably needs to go even lower than 3/4 of an inch. And maybe even cut down, and then cut down on his nitrogen a little bit more too, because leaf spot, I typically see leaf spot on Bermuda that is kept too dense for conditions. So if you're in a humid, wet area, or an area that's wet and warm during the summer, last thing I want to hear about is a thick lawn. I want that lawn thin and short. I want that lawn thin and short. And the other thing that he's looking at is, if he's dealing with one of the hybrid Bermudas that came out like in the last 10 to 15 years, like your Tip Tough or your Tip Grand or your Tahoma 31, I know from experience that those turf grasses, part of their feature is that they are highly resistant to diseases compared to common Bermuda or even the old varieties like Tiflay 419. Because to me, Tiflay 419 is another disease magnet. I mean, it's undesirable for that reason. And in fact, 419 is probably why Bermuda grass in Hawaii is a very bad word. Nobody wants to deal with Bermuda, install Bermuda, or have anything to do with Bermuda just because of the bad taste that 419 left in their mouth.
Yeah. And normally, and Jason, I'll say this just from where I am in Knoxville. Now, again, I'm peak transition zone. We have been going through every day right now midday thunderstorms or really midday to late day thunderstorms. And so running into periods where the lawn is staying wet consecutively 24, 72, 96 hours a week. And when you start rolling that many days together where the grass is perpetually wet, that's normally when I start to see it. Or extended cloud cover, right? Say we get a big thunderstorm, then the next day it's cloudy, then a big thunderstorm. 3 days in a row there, that's when I start seeing it. And you couple that after giving it a little with some nitrogen, you're getting some young, tender vegetative growth, and that too can be one of the contributing factors to it. So if you haven't, it may be a good time to go ahead and scalp it all down and let it proliferate. And or if you have got an irrigation system, kind of like the whole premise with Dollar Spot, knock the dew off in the morning, something like that. It might help you in the long run too. But really, get you a little what's the word I'm looking for? Get you a little sunshine in your life.
Yeah, get a little sun in your life, and in absence of that, I'd probably say it's time to break out the Strawberry fungicides or the SDHI fungicides. It's time.
Well, Ray, I sure do appreciate you coming on today. I had a great time, and as always, we'll see you next week, same damn time, same damn place.
Yeah, same time, same channel, same place, and hopefully same shenanigans. Same shenanigans.
That's right. Thank you, good sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Ray, we'll holler at you. There he is, the finest turf talk on radio there is. Right here on Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station. All right, I got to take a break. When we come back, we still got a couple more questions to kind of gloss through there. And also, we're going to be talking about a little bit on the inside of the industry as far as fertilizer prices, commodity prices, and how that's going to affect your seed season and also your next spring. Then also, let's get into some funny news that's coming out of Minnesota when it comes to fertilizer application restrictions. It's happening in ag. Is it going to show up in lawn care? I don't know. We'll talk about it after the break. You're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, this is Herbicide from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turfs Up Radio.
Hump day?
Do we have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hot place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
Hey, landscape pros, are you tired of digging through rocks and roots and breaking shovels in the process? Then it's time you checked out the GeoRipper 616. It's a landscaper's dream with the Makita 6 Series 2-cycle engine producing over 4 horsepower of raw performance. The 616 digs deep in up to 16 inches of the toughest soils. Lighting, landscape, and irrigation contractors already love this improved lightweight trencher with its ability to get in and get out faster, easier, and with less ground disturbance. And you will too. This redesigned GeoRipper 616 comes with 2 heavy-duty digging chains and a whole mess of helpful extras. To learn more about the GeoRipper and how it can help you out in the field, visit georipper.com today.
All right, we're back. Polo had a question here. It said, Matt, when applying seed to a dirt lawn killed by glyphosate, can I apply X-Oil on top of the seed? Yes, you can. No problem there. Okay, so a little bit on the inside, as you know, I'm fortunate to be privy to this information. I like to, well, I don't like to. It's a job requirement. Really, is looking at what's happening to commodity prices. And the way this kind of works is fertilizer is traded really at a commodity price, and then you have commodity prices where you're dealing in 100-ton contracts, and then you have what's considered retail, and your fertilizer prices at retail are going to be basically that what goes to like your local fertilizer blender, and then they blend it and then package it and then sell it to you, right? So and here's what's kind of going on right now. It was odd. Last week it was just kind of out of nowhere. There was a big $25 spike in urea in commodity prices. So in these events, when you experience a $25 spike, that's a pretty big, that's a 10% spike off the cost of urea there. So what you can expect to see, I'll be curious to see how long this hangs around. It could be very temporary. It could be the note of the starting growing trend here for a little while people are doing fall planning. And sometimes you'll see fall nitrogen applications in farm relay over as there's a greater demand. And of course, supply and demand starts to kick in. You see an increased spike. Now, kind of a weird thing too is all of a sudden out of India, one of these big, India is obviously a huge agricultural area. We saw a company that had futures on 2 million tons of urea call on those futures contracts to start taking delivery on that urea. So all of a sudden, there's a huge increased pressure seemingly out of nowhere, too, going along with potentially fall plantings. I don't think that one purchase alone would drive it up 10%. It might, but all of a sudden, we've got a big demand on it. Now, with them calling 2 million tons, here's the thing, is still looking out at the futures contracts. So this is moving into November, January, February timeframe. We're still higher. We're still a tick higher on our urea cost. Now, the majority of the fertilizer, the nitrogen that's going to be blended into your products, moving into your spring and even into early summer, the majority of that's going to be purchased and blended over winter, this coming winter. So with a rise and a lingering rise in the futures contracts in that time frame, one thing you may expect is to see higher prices on your end fertilizer because of the uptick in urea. Now, obviously, urea is not the only thing that's in fertilizer. So while urea is at its retail still around $3.55 a ton, we saw, which was kind of an uptick there, we did see moderate stability across DAP, diammonium phosphate, 1846.0, which is oftentimes blended in to give you the P value in your fertilizer, and as well as MAP. MAP about the same price at retail, around $530 a ton. Now, the way oftentimes this gets blended. If the big demand is put on U.S. Gulf of Mexico urea, sometimes what they will do is they'll reach further south. Brazil's also a big manufacturer of urea, and the prices there, though still a little bit elevated, they're starting to compete all of a sudden with the prices we have coming from the United States. That is coming in around $285 a ton, so retail, you're probably looking at $375. So if there is increased pressure on demand from the United States, we may be seeing a little bit higher uptake coming out of Brazil. But it shouldn't be overwhelmingly large. You know, if it makes up only 33% of your blend, like nitrogen, something like that, and it goes up 10%, well, you could parlay that down to about a 3% cost increase in your fertilizer. Potash, oddly though, is up still fairly high. So potash is one of those ones that has been cheap for quite a while. With the merger that took place between I can't remember the name of the company, but it was Potash Corp and Agrium. That was it. They formed they had a merger, and they came together as what's now called Nutrien. They pretty much owned the North American market on potash. Potash is up still, where it was at about $228 a ton. Now we're sitting retail at about $358 a ton. So about a 33% increase in potash that was not absorbed last spring, that will be absorbed this spring. And sulfate of potash, of course, is always the premium product, and we're still seeing about $680 a ton retail right now. So for those of you that are planning going into this fall and going into next year, one thing I do want to warn you about as you're purchasing, you probably will notice an uptake in fertilizer costs due to commodity prices going up. It's just something to keep into the back of your mind, that if one of those messages comes out about what's coming up for the upcoming season, I would just mentally prepare right now, seeing it that the fact that we're taking this right now in August, it's going to continue until about March. As we come out of March, we should see a general decline from, March, April, May, back down until about August, September, October of next year. So for the time being, from now through spring of next year, get ready. Fert prices are going to be eking just a little bit higher in that regard. Now, for those of you that use a little bit of UAN is down. We're seeing retail $223 a ton for 28% and $262 a ton for 32%. So if you use UAN, you should notice some stability around there. But with your potash prices going up, if you apply any potash alongside your UAN or any sulfate of potash alongside your UAN, with those prices being up, that will ultimately affect the cost of your overall application as well. How about them apples? Some inside news as far as everything going on in the commodity space. Are you interested in what's going on in the commodity? It's something I watched, so I thought, well, what the hell? I'll go ahead and bring it on air and see how everybody responds to it, because it's I don't know. It's just one of those things. Also in the news and out in the world, it affects the green industry in not short term, but also long term, and just overall the eyes that are on the industry. There was a 6-year-old that was involved in a lawnmower accident, and these are just, it's hard for me to read. The saving grace in this right now is the fact that I know the 6-year-old was okay. He's going to survive, and he's gonna come back. A Minnesota dad has a warning for you after a lawn mowing accident landed his son in the hospital. Clay County deputies were called to a rural Felton home, this is in Minnesota, just after 8 Saturday night, and say the 6-year-old boy was soon life-flighting to a Fargo hospital to treat the wounds to his calf. Saturday night wasn't the first time Justin told his young sons to be careful while he mowed the lawn, as his riding mower is old and doesn't have good brakes. This little bugger sneaked up behind me, and without me seeing, of course, Daddy didn't hear him either. And just as I was putting the lawnmower in reverse, he ended up getting in the way of the lawnmower. He heard a thud and knew something was not right. My heart dropped out of my shoes, and I was extremely scared for my son. Immediately scooped him up in my arms, headed into the house, and told my wife to call 911. I knew it was bad, so I also yelled at my wife, grab a shirt and a belt, something that I could wrap his leg up. A helicopter took his 6-year-old to the hospital in Fargo, where doctors say he'll likely be for at least another 2 weeks. They think he's going to be able to walk and run like a normal boy. He's just going to have one big nasty scar. He can move his toes, he can spread his toes out, and he can bend his foot forward and back. He expects to, even though he already has about 85% of his function back in his leg. Just something to keep in mind while you're out there. It puts eyes on the industry. It gets people looking at us, and unfortunately, these are one of those things. It's just a life occurrence, and it's not the kind of attention we want, but it's something we have to deal with. And I think it's a good time to go ahead and remind everybody that even though we don't employ a bunch of 6-year-olds out here, the reality of what we're doing in the green industry is that there's always a potential for someone to get hurt. And we have to keep that at the forefront. Any kind of training we can do to help people avoid an accident of this caliber is a positive that will go a long way towards employee retention and go a long way towards safety. At the end of the day, nobody needs to get hurt. Nobody needs to get hurt. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I especially don't want children to get hurt, but we need to stay as safe, educated, trained up on safety as humanly possible. I work in the manufacturing sector of the green industry, and I can tell you it is one of those things. It's something we have to talk about on a weekly basis. Because when you're working with these machines, whether you're dealing with a lawnmower, whether you're dealing with a weed eater, or whether you're dealing with a hammer mill, there's a potential for a loss of limbs. Every year, there are a certain number of accidents in lawn care that leads to deaths, where people get pinned underneath a lawnmower. I can tell you when I was in college, nobody could tell me anything different other than what I convinced myself. And I was using one of those Sidewinder Toro mowers that had the adjustable deck, and I was trying to avoid weed eating this pond bank. And so I'm riding the edge of it, and I'm adjusting my mower deck to reach down as far as possible. And it was early in the morning. The sun was barely up. And the rear of this Sidewinder slid down into the pond, and when it did, it rolled over on top of me. And if I did not have my roll bar up, it would have pinned me in about, 6-8 inches of water. In likelihood, there probably would have been a good chance that I would have drowned to death if I did not have that. Now, I was never one to pay attention to it. I know there are certain people out there when it comes to roll bars, they get hung on tree limbs and all kinds of things. There's a reason why it's there, and it's there to save your life. So if at all possible, remember to do these things. Employ these safety features that this equipment has to avoid some sort of catastrophic injury or catastrophic accident, because there's people at the end of the day that depend on you. And I'm not talking about your employer. I'm talking about everybody at home. And that's what's most important, is being able to come home and be present in their lives at the end of the day. Dramatic pause for effect. Again, looking at all this, I'm being texted pictures from Iowa here, and this is just terrible. Apparently 90 mile an hour straight line winds in some areas, and it looks like a bomb went off. I mean, trees just absolutely snapped over at a moment's notice, and it was a Dureco, so not a tornado. It was just a large area, almost like a microburst, so to speak, just over a large area, though, that is, it brought down a significant amount of just craziness. I don't know how everybody in Illinois fared out of it, because I know it passed through Illinois, too, and the person I was asking about it, nope, never mind, he's on. Apparently, he didn't lose power. But we're even seeing it on golf courses right now. I'm seeing it on Twitter where, they're completely buried in leaves and trees. I mean, golf greens just completely covered up. I mean, it legit looks like a hurricane went through. Not a good look. That is not good. So I hope everybody made it through safely. I hope no one was injured. I hope nobody was hurt. And I hope everybody was able to get back to their trucks in time and just avoid the pandemonium there, because yikes. Absolutely yikes. I can say I'm lucky. I've never been caught out in one of those major storms while I was out. I always managed to luckily find my way back to a truck. Plus, I've never lived anywhere where we have to deal with major storms like that anyway. We didn't see it in Memphis. I've never really seen it like that in Knoxville. So I couldn't imagine. I'm sure that's definitely a scary, freaky thing going on. Getting notes here. Kenny said sporadic in Illinois. I'm about an hour from home. Barely anything here, but his wife said it was pretty bad there. Well, we have reached the final 3 minutes on this beautiful Monday. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We had Pick the Doc's Brain, and that was always great. If we didn't get to your questions, feel free to email them, and we will get to them next week and do the best we can. Sometimes there's a lot to get to. And Ray and I, when we get to talking, we like to talk a lot as well. So thank you all for tuning in. Oh, and also comment. Do you care about the commodities? Do you want me to talk about the commodities? It's something I look at and I'm interested in. I was like, well, maybe someone somewhere out there would want to look at it from that standpoint. And some people are into the inner working of the intricacies of the industry. So if you want to learn more about that, feel free, comment, tell me, yeah, I want to hear more. No, I don't want to hear a darn thing about it. That way I know. Because it takes time to type that out and put it together, at least from a mental perspective. Coming up after this, we've got who? Keeping Up with Mr. Jones. My main man, Eric, the Turf Teacher Jones. Tonight, we got Russell Heckubus with the nightcap. Had a meeting with Russell earlier today. It's a good time. He's a riot. And if you haven't listened, stick around. Listen to him. Tell him I said hey. Tell him you said hey. Request a song. Request a topic of conversation. Someone ask about his service in the armed forces. Hell of an interesting story there. How many people do you know that have survived a parachuting accident? We got big things coming up on Turf's Up Radio. That was part of the meeting we had today, so stick around and be ready for all those changes. I don't know how much of just changes there are. I think we're just adding more to the lineup. We got more shows, more segments. We got people putting out particular news for us. We got Mance doing news out of Baltimore. We got Douglas Dynamics. Oh, and real quick, I want to do this. This is my favorite right here. Abby does such a great job.
Hello, everyone. This is Abby Lancia with Turf's Up Radio, reporting your national weather forecast. Today is August 9th, 2020. It's Sunday, so let's have a look at what weather to expect starting off this new week. This week is definitely going to start off as a stormy one in the Midwest, in areas around Minneapolis. We're going to have some active weather. Some of these thunderstorms can be severe with a slight chance of tornadoes, especially today. With these severe storms, prepare for strong winds that could be damaging, as well as hail, which can be expected today.
She
and
called
on Monday
it
as well.
The best
By
weather
Monday,
lady
these
in the
storms
industry.
Are going to shift from the Midwest and move towards the south. The Central Plains and the Great Lakes can expect to see some severe weather on Monday. As usual, we're going to have scattered storms in the southeast on Monday, with temperatures reaching the low 90s in Atlanta, Georgia, and Miami, Florida. The west is going to remain very, very dry today and for the next few days. We're going to have very high temperatures ranging from the low 90s, surpassing the 100-degree mark. Unfortunately, with no rainfall, so really no way to cool off this area. Tuesday, we're going to have some cooler temperatures move into the Midwest, bringing the temperatures to around 70 to 80 degrees, so some nice, pleasant weather to enjoy in the Midwest. And if you're loving what you're hearing on the station, be sure to go onto Facebook and visit us at our page, Turfs Up Radio, and give us a rating. It would really help us out. And that is it for today, everyone. This is Abby Lancio with Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station. Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah! Abby, the most accurate weather lady in all of America right there, calling it all. Okay, I'm out of here. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow. How about? Did I make it? I'm still on YouTube, but I'm off the radio now. So there we go. Hey, thanks everybody who's still sticking around. The last few of you here. I'm gonna end this stream, but thanks again. And I'm gonna keep doing this stream thing and see what happens. I like doing it. I don't know. I like the live format. It's kind of fun. So thank y'all for tuning in. We'll catch you on the flip side.